Strategic Planning Committee of the Board of Education, Montgomery County Public Schools. I would like to start today with introductions. I am Carla Silvestre. I'm the chair of the committee and also vice president of the board. And I'll go with Ms. Evans.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shebra Evans, board member representing District 4.
Ms. Harris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lynn Harris, Board of Ed member at large.
And our Chief of Staff, Ms. Webb.
Good afternoon, everybody. Lori Christina Webb, Chief of Staff for the board.
Dr. Addison.
Good afternoon, Keisha Addison, Director in the Office of Shared Accountability.
Ms. Stratman.
Hi, Karen Stratman, MCPS Chief of Staff.
And Ms. Harris. Darlene Harris.
Darlene Harris. Oh, that's fine. Darlene Harris, Executive Director, Chief of Staff.
Okay, I think that's everyone. The agenda is on board docs. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And we also have minutes from our last Strategic Planning Committee meeting. Are there any edits, comments for that? All right, very well, let's get started. Just for our community to know, we are in the final year of our current strategic plan. And so the Strategic Planning Committee's work this year is to take a look at our current plan and refine it, improve it, so that we have direction and charge for moving forward for the following 3 years. This work has begun. And so today's presentation will be an update on where we are in this process, the timeline going forward, and of course, how this committee would like to shape the plan. So I will pass it over to Ms. Karen Stratman to get us started.
Thank you, Ms. Silvestri, and good afternoon, board members and everyone joining us today. Today, we come to you with a proposal around Montgomery County Public Schools strategic priorities towards the development of the strategic plan, as Ms. Silvestri mentioned, for fiscal year 22 through 25. We are in the final year of the current strategic plan that has governed for the last 3 years. As you'll remember back in March, and as Ms. Silvestri mentioned, the issue was raised by those on this committee to streamline and reduce down the current 7 strategic priorities. And we further discussed priority alignment to the ongoing work of the district, particularly that of the 2.5-year planning teams as the system moves out of the pandemic, with a heightened focus on this series of issues and concerns and, frankly, struggles of our system, our students, and our staff. Also in March, we were able to provide you then with a sense of available data pertaining to the board's 7 priorities, and we had a robust discussion around that. We also talked about the impact of the available data that was impacted by the pandemic, both this year and last. We talked through the addition of the 7th priority, which is meeting students' social and emotional needs, based on conversations that you had at your January retreat. So today, leading up to that, we will do 3 things. Dr. Addison, who runs our Office of Student Accountability, will overview our proposal that includes 3 streamlined and somewhat collective strategic priorities, including our proposed objectives and measures around those 3 collective priorities. We will talk a bit about the alignment to our current work. We'll also talk about the feedback to an external stakeholder group that you asked us to connect with and put together. We've convened them, and they had comments both regards to our current work and potential measures around how we look at the effectiveness of that current work and the ongoing work moving into next year and a full physical reopening of schools. And lastly, we'll discuss how close we are to the mark in streamlining down those 3 priorities without missing any key issues, if they're the right 3, and we'll discuss your thoughts about the objectives and measures we're putting forward for consideration today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Addison to begin to share our PowerPoint. Keisha?
Thank you. Can we have a slide deck, please? Thank you. Next slide. So during our March 18th conversation, we shared with you this visual showing how the all-in equity and achievement framework, the 2.5-year plan, all feed and align with the board strategic plan. Next slide, please. On this slide, on March 18th, we shared how these 4 priority areas under the 2.5-year plan connected to the 7 strategic priorities. And we identified existing measures under each of the strategic priorities during that March 18th meeting. Today, as Ms. Stratman shared, we are making recommendations based on our March 18th conversation related to your priority areas as well as measures. Additionally, we will discuss objectives and goals for these measures. Next slide, please. So again, during the March 18th conversation, Ms. Silvestri, you wondered whether there were too many priority areas and mentioned you would not be opposed to reducing it to fewer. And so today, as Ms. Stratman alluded to, we're going to share a proposal to reduce the number of strategic priorities while maintaining your interest as a board. Next slide, please. So today we share a proposal to reduce the 7 strategic priorities into 3. And what you'll see here are the organization and chunking of the current 7 into 3 larger strategic priority areas. Strategic priority area 1 is where the measures of academic achievement and preparation for college and career are organized. And what you also see is a proposed priority area name. And so for this strategic priority area 1, we're recommending labeling or naming it teaching and learning. For strategic priority area 2, this is where we're bringing in the whole child approach related to supports for students and families beyond academics. And the proposed priority name for this area is parent and community engagement, wellness, and support. And the third strategic priority area is related to how, as a district, we ensure we have highly qualified staff and high quality learning environments to ensure success for students. And the proposed priority name is organizational operations, technology, and professional learning. Next, we will share proposed objectives and measures organized under the 3 strategic priority areas. Here you see the measures within each, within strategic priority area 1. And if there is agreement with kind of how we organize it, this is what our recommendation is. What you will notice on this slide in the upper right-hand side are the 2.5-year priority areas that align with this strategic priority area. And so you will notice for the area of teaching and learning, the objectives and measures help us in examining academic performance. Some of the objectives included in this area are, for the first bullet, improve student achievement in literacy and mathematics, which would be measured using aspects of the all-in equity and achievement framework. More specifically, the evidence of learning framework, which is our multiple measures approach to examining literacy and mathematics performance for students. In addition, the academic achievement component of the equity accountability model would be another way that we could measure that objective. Another objective proposed under teaching and learning is to increase the percentage of students graduating high school and succeeding in college and career readiness. And this can be measured with our graduation rate component of the equity accountability model within our all-in equity and achievement framework. Additionally, career and technical education program enrollment, concentration, and completion can also serve as a measure in this area, as well as things that we have used in the past, which would be graduation rates for schools. I'm going to pause here just to see if there are any questions around this, or if we want to just continue until the end.
Colleagues, do you have any questions at this point, or do you want to hear the whole presentation and then ask?
If we could continue, that'd be great. This is good so far.
I agree.
Okay.
Ms. Harris, yeah.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So for strategic priority area 2, parent and community engagement, wellness and support, the difference is that the focus is more on the students and families, while the previous strategic priority area was focused on the academic supports for students. And so these objectives and aligned measures are designed to help us show how we ensure student success by social, emotional, and behavioral health supports. Additionally, this area has a focus on how we work with parents, staff, and community to build capacity and create safe and caring environments for all. The 2.5-year area aligned to this strategic priority is the well-being support. One objective indicated here is to implement school-level processes to support effective and efficient behavior modification systems. This has been a conversation that you all have had and that we're working towards in the district. Another objective is to promote positive, caring, and supportive district and school climates respectful of all learners. And some measures include results from parent engagement surveys, as well as staff and student climate surveys. Next slide, please. For the third strategic priority area, the objectives and measures help us reveal how we not only hire and retain effective employees, but also how we support all staff and empower them to deliver the highest quality student-focused instruction. Also in this area, the use of technology to improve teaching and learning is a focus. One objective indicated is increasing district-wide professional development that aligns with strategic priorities. Measures for this objective include reporting of enrollment and attendance at various professional development opportunities in the district. Another objective, which is connected to an ask from you all as a board, is to connect the district's financial plan to the strategic plan. And so while a measure is not explicitly stated yet for this, we could use how we progress toward this development as an idea for how to measure it. And now I will turn it back over to Ms. Stratman to share more on the alignment of the 3 strategic priority areas and the 2.5-year areas.
Thank you, Keisha. I appreciate the work that Dr. Addison has done in terms of creating these groupings. We've had a lot of conversations about this at the staff level of late. And the alignment piece here is really key, both in terms of alignment of the current work that we've been going through system-wide, alignment of the budget priorities. We will, and not just today, it's kind of a precursor to 2 meetings that are happening in the next week. The first is the May 25th board meeting, where you'll get a much deeper sense of what's gone on across the entire board. We'll get a much deeper sense of what's gone on around these 2.5-year planning teams, the number of external stakeholders have been involved in that work, and the breadth and depth of that work has been enhanced because of the involvement of those external stakeholders. And then on the 27th at a board work session, how that alignment carries through into our budget priorities will be shared by our members of the budget team to really fulfill and fill out that picture of what's going on in the next 2.5 years and beyond. Just wanted to give that context for the next couple of weeks and what the board will be seeing. Next slide, please. From this slide, we've trying to show the alignment of 3 of the 2.5, 3 of our current board priorities with 3 of the 2.5-year planning areas towards this strategic priority area 1 for teaching and learning. These 3, students ready to learn, reducing and eliminating disparities in student learning, and students prepared for college and career, most closely aligned to 3 of the 2.5-year planning areas. The first, mitigating learning disruption. As you'll see, and you'll get more information about next week in the full board meeting, the mitigating learning loss team has been focusing on a number of areas and a number of priorities, including summer programming outreach, with the recognition that plans for the summer programming for this year, the expansion and enhancement of those summer program offerings that we know many of our students need coming out of the pandemic, that while a lot of the components of that were prepared and have already been put together, what the team decided was to focus on outreach and to do outreach in different ways than before. And that's where one of their focus areas have been. High dosage tutoring and the extensive need for tutoring both this summer and into next fall. Professional development in a couple of areas, both acceleration, where those students who've done well in primarily virtual learning, as well as some supports for struggling students, for those who have not done as well in a virtual environment, as well as work around math recovery. For our focus on our most poverty-impacted schools, that team was led in part by, or co-led by our lead for human resources, Dr. Helen Nixon, and she and her team have been instrumental in coming up with differentiated staffing approaches, particularly as they impact our most poverty-impacted schools. And a differentiated look at outreach for parents, both in parent-to-parent outreach and other ways that we could do that sort of work in building in a family component and what those students need, particularly for those schools. And lastly, around digital learning and support, the primary work of that team has been the build out and the focus of the virtual school that will be implemented in fall 2021, but also a build out of early childhood component that will lead into the needs of that virtual school and how that will look for the fall. Next slide, please. In aligning to strategic priority area 2, parent and community engagement, wellness and support, our well-being and support team is for the 2.5-year planning is key there. They focus on a number of things, including a lot of the focus on social emotional needs of students, that 7th priority that was added as a part of your January board retreat. But in terms of the work, the idea there has been to focus on providing more and intensive mental health supports were needed for staff. Virtual counseling opportunities for all students were needed, and social emotional learning opportunities that build off our current staff capacity and expand that staff capacity through professional development and support. Next slide, please. For strategic priority area 3, organizational operations, technology and professional learning, that connects most directly to 2 teams, the digital learning and support team, obviously, and as well as our staffing or focus on most poverty impacted schools team. The Virtual Academy for this fall has identified both work effectiveness and efficiencies available through technology and increasing our technological pedagogy and content, more of which we'll hear about at next week's full board meeting, as well as our needs of our most poverty-impacted schools. And again, what we're doing there to improve both the opportunities for our staff for professional development and how that impacts our most poverty-impacted schools and beyond. But before we get to our discussion around these particular 3 areas and the collective priorities we've put before you, I want to show you the external stakeholders we've shared, both our 2.5-year plan work and the alignment around the 7 priorities and how that discussion went and what they offered for feedback. Next slide, please. These are the external stakeholders who've been involved in this work, who we, again, have shared their priorities and the alignment and had a lot of discussion around 2.5-year plans. Next slide. And the feedback we got from them was helpful and part of what I want to share today. They really appreciated the focus on the social emotional needs of students and staff, particularly through the school well-being teams, affectionately known as SWBTs, which we've shared with our Office of Student and Family Supports and Engagement. One thing that they noted, and I was surprised and happy to hear how they appreciated the connection to our work and our future work with the ESSER funding, ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, and the needs and the priorities for ESSER 3. They talked a lot about their happiness around the American Recovery Plan Act and how that Recovery Act, ARPA, as I think it's an unfortunate acronym, but I think it's the one that's starting to stick, how that work and how that piece of legislation raises the stakes for social emotional needs of students, how we've taken that one step further in thinking about the social emotional needs of staff, and the financial investments for district like ours in particular to think about how we do that better and in a more expanded way. They voiced strong support for the development of the virtual school and expansion of that moving forward. They had a lot of questions about the impacts of that around career and tech education and how the virtual school would be used specifically to meet the needs of those students. They were like, have you thought about how a career and tech ed student who's involved in maybe a day long or at least a partial day internship or work-based learning experience could come at night and take a self-paced class through the virtual school on their own. They were way out in front of what we hope to get to in some of the virtual school offerings, but they had a lot of strong suggestions there that we'll pass along to that team, or we've passed along to that team. They expressed support for expanded, enhanced summer school options, but they also raised an important point that we read about in the media a lot about students and staff needing a break coming off of a tough year, and how we balance bringing students and giving students what they need with knowing that they've had a hard year stretched into a year and a half, and how some of them, many of them, are still in a virtual environment and might need and how you balance their need for a break with how we bring them up to speed with the learning loss we know that some of them experienced. They voiced questions and comments around reaching appropriate, realistic, and telling social emotional learning measures. Dr. Addison shared what we're thinking about in that regard, but we had a healthy conversation around the age-old discussion of how do you measure how things feel to students? How do you measure how it feels in a classroom, whether a physical classroom setting or a virtual classroom setting? And how do we know we're getting somewhere in that regard, which will be the proof in the pudding for all of this work around social emotional learning. Then they finally they had some comments around career and tech ed measures that are sufficiently tied to workplace literacy and numeracy, how well the content was matching what the demands are of the workplace, and how we intend to go about that. So we've shared those with our career and tech ed staff as well. Next slide, please. So moving to our questions for discussion, we'd really like to pose two questions back to you and hope that we can focus our discussion today more largely around these two pieces. First, are these three the correct strategic priority areas? Do they collectively capture the original 7 that we know that this board has expressed, has been with this board for a long time? And do they collectively capture what's in the original 7? And if so, are the proposed objectives and measures that have been shared with you today the right ones? Are there others that should be included? Are there some that you don't feel fit? Those are the questions that we pose in getting your feedback today to what's been prepared. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Ms. Silvestri.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll open it up for comments from my colleagues. Ms. Evans, would you like to go first?
Sure. No, thank you for that. I believe that you took all 7 and properly grouped them in the right category. So definitely like how that was done. And I feel like nothing is being missed, that everything is still there. We just kind of, we shortened it down to 3 priority areas. And so I do appreciate Dr. Addison, taking that feedback that I believe Vice President Silvestri made at our last meeting and coming back immediately to this meeting with that update, with that being handled, and the objectives. And looking at the objectives, everything seems to be covered as well. I appreciated the feedback that we got from the stakeholder groups. I think it was a really great idea that we brought people from the outside forward to be able to look at our strategic priorities and take a look at it and then see how they felt like it all matched up. So I appreciate the questions, especially the one around, I'm probably jumping all around appropriate, realistic, and telling social emotional learning measures. So I would be interested to see how we do that, how we bring that forward to capture that. But no, I'm pleased with what we have here. And then I'll let my other colleagues jump in if you have any thoughts or you feel like something was missing. But I feel like we captured everything.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans. Ms. Harris?
Yeah, thank you a lot here. And just a couple of things that I'll raise at the start of the discussion. Looking at the priority area 2, parent and community engagement, student wellness and supports, and looking at the measures that were presented, and looking at what are we, and maybe I missed it and I apologize if I did, what are we looking at measures around how effectively we actually are engaging parents and families and students when it comes to making them our partners and identifying how efficiently and effectively we're doing this work. And we're keeping them in the process loop as we move forward.
So that's a great question. I'm going to approach it from 2 different lenses. One is when we think about strategic plan and measures, you want something that's measurable. And so effectiveness is, we have to define what that looks like. And so when we think about how effective are we in doing that, from my perspective, I think that is a separate piece outside of the strategic plan. So I'm thinking from a research perspective in terms of that's more of an evaluation. As we begin implementing these different approaches, we are evaluating how are we implementing this, and we're obtaining feedback that we can use the feedback from these groups around how engaged they felt. So that's where that survey comes in, self-reports. But I think when we think about strategic planning, we want to think about effectiveness measured over here, not necessarily in the plan, but the feedback around how they feel, how they're engaged on the other side, and include that into as one of the measures within the plan. And we can continue to think about that, but that is a great point in terms of we want to make sure we have that information.
Yeah, and I think, every one of our 208 schools is different from the one from the other and from itself year to year, because that's the nature of our work. People, especially our customers, our students and families are kind of, collectively moving forward and through. And, as, we do see differences school to school and area to area in how well we're able to reach out and engage families and bring them into our schools so that they feel safe and welcome. And I think it'd be good if we can find ways, and I'm not saying this is easy by any stretch, of keeping sort of an ongoing cycle of touchstones with our school communities, so that our school leaders, our parent leaders, our student leaders, our staff leaders are telling us, how well they feel like they are able to get effectively communicate and bring all of their families sort of in to be to engage in the school at the level at which they feel comfortable. Because I do think that is an ongoing challenge that we have.
One of the things I do want us to remember as we're thinking about measuring is also be mindful that we want it to look the same. And so the extent to which we implement things consistently across the district allows us to tell that story, because it would be challenging for us to tell the district story if there's variability within different schools, because we will be measuring different things. And so that's another thing that we're going to make sure that we work toward, is ensuring that whatever we identify is something that we know is consistent across all schools, that will help us better tell that story of measuring what's happening.
Yeah, which is true, because there's a lot of variability in all of our schools. So that is a tough job. So yeah. And one question I had too, that in the same priority area 2, parent and community engagement, when you're talking about some of the different areas of implementation and measures, looking at things like restorative justice and things like that. And we looked at professional development as a very key part of, I'm looking back at my notes and I apologize, our highly effective employees. So, but to me, part of our effectiveness in engagement, wellness, and support is gets down to things like trauma-informed practices and things like classroom management. And are we looking to really intentionally in our highly effective teaching, efficiency in operations measures or areas of focus, ensuring that our teachers and our staff have really high quality professional development in the area of classroom management and de-escalation, as those are some of the measures that I think go to helping create that safe, welcoming atmosphere in every school, so that no matter what a student or a staff member brings with them into a building any given day, we are doing what we can to make sure that the people that surround them have the skill set they might need to support somebody who is being impacted by trauma or acting out in some ways that really don't have anything to do with what's happening in the teaching and learning, but in their other in you know, kind of the life that they bring with them when they come into the building.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was looking back, there is a bullet under strategic priority area 3 about trauma informed practices, or that support for staff. I think one of the things that we can talk about collectively is figuring out where's the better fit for that professional learning in that area. Is it under strategic priority area 3, which is focused on highly effective employees and staff, or do we want to put it under strategic priority area 2, because that is the well-being support area? So I think that's something that we can think about. Where's the better fit for that aspect?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. So I would, again, thank you for taking a recommendation to combine them. I think in some of the best practice work that I read about strategic planning, it's important for school systems to have fewer priorities that we can focus on rather than a larger number that kind of distract us. And that point was made clear to me at the last meeting when we saw that the measures for the first 3 were the same ones. So it really made sense to combine them under one if we were going to be measuring the same thing for most of them. I would recommend, I want to be inspired when I read each of these priority areas. So I appreciate the titles, but I would like for us to work with our communication experts to I want to read teaching and learning and say yes for excellence, for the next century, for, you know, something. And so same for all the other priority areas. Let's see. In priority area number 2, I know you talk about behavior modification. Would it make sense to have a measure in terms of reduction of our referral and suspension data included there?
Yes, we can add that.
as I think I stated previously, I would like to see a measure for every objective, because if we're not going to measure it, then why is it in the plan? So I know we're still working on it. And Ms. Stratman, you mentioned the current summer work in the 2.5 plan. For what purpose in this context? I wasn't clear about that.
Oh, the only reason I mentioned it was because I was just referring to the focus areas for the mitigating learning disruption 2.5-year planning team. So I just wanted to, I was really just a preview, I guess, or a heads up of what the work is that they've been taking on, and just how that kind of fit in with that entire team's work. That was the only reason.
And I think we've discussed this in the planning for this meeting, but we want to get to the point of having one plan rather than having the strategic plan and the 2.5 plan. And so could you share for us kind of the thinking behind how these two plans will merge, the strategic plan being one and the 2.5 being maybe how we do the work? Could you elaborate further on that?
Well, I actually think the key is in those three groupings, because I think from the slide you could see where the work really is aligned, or at least what we're trying to get is where that the work is really aligned to those measures. And I think if we get to the example that you just gave a second ago about using reduction, referral, and suspension data as a piece to get to a more clarity around the well-being support piece, and wanting a measure for every single objective. I think if we could, I think maybe the next step of all this is that if you have the work that you're going to hear about in the 2.5-year plans that you're going to hear more about next week. And I think if within each of those bodies of work, we can tie those effectively to an objective, and then effectively tie those objectives to a measure, basically what you're saying, it would be easy to see the flow there. Because I think that what we're trying to get to is a strategic plan that, as you've said before in asking for this, is streamlined. So you have these three fairly large buckets that truly does line up with what each of the teams have been taking on. And I think the other thing that we'll be able to get here, if we're able to really kind of effectively get to this alignment, would probably mean that for the external stakeholders that we've included in these 2.5-year planning teams, that they would be, frankly, advocates, and what we'd hope to be, they'd hopefully be as invested in this work and how it aligns both for their organizations and their members who have been a part of this work. And they might have some, I think, suggestions and ideas for us in terms of the objectives and the measures as well. So I think the best way to kind of go about those three pieces collectively, that if we can truly align those objectives to what it is those teams are doing, it might be both clear for you as a board and clear for the community. Because I think you're right. I mean, I think that my own kind of struggle around this was, okay, if we're all about 2.5-year planning, but this is our strategic plan over here, we've got to figure out some way to bridge between the two of them. And that's really what we're trying to move toward.
And I do want to add to what Ms. Stratman shared, is that we can also think about them in the way when we think about a strategic plan, that it has objectives, measures, and then kind of the strategies. And so as we think about the alignment of 2.5-year work within, a lot of what the groups and the work groups have been talking about are a lot of the strategies to get to these objectives and goals and measures. And so as Ms. Stratman stated, when we think about that summer school work, that's a strategy that is used within that mitigating learning loss aspect of the 2.5-year. And so continuing to ensure that as we talk about these things, we talk about them collectively and say, here's our strategic plan with goals and objectives and 2.5-year, I will say, strategies that align to this work as well.
And I would just add there, Ms. Sylvester, you've pushed us, and I think you've pushed the district, frankly, around how does this align with the budget? One thing you'll see at the work session on the 29th is that Dan Morella and the budget team will share is how they've taken the 2.5-year planning team's strategies that Dr. Addison was just mentioning and aligning them to costs. We have that $30 million that we have, which is really just a down payment on these 2.5-year planning teams. Each of those teams has a certain amount tied to it. And with each of those, we align costs to those strategies. So it's really kind of a three-pronged approach that you would have the alignment across these three strategic priority areas, that you would have the strategies and the work that we're building towards, and the actual budget line items that tie back across all three components. That's really the goal.
And it's my understanding that as the budget system gets upgraded, we'll be able to better align the budget with the strategic plan. So you could tell us, this is how much money is being spent on social emotional system-wide, not just in additional, programs that we're adding in the current year.
Well, as we've talked to the budget team about that, and it's my understanding from Dan that within the next, we're probably at least a year out from being able to tell that just in terms of the upgrade of the budget system. But the idea there would be that you could look at something like the 2.5-year plan and this $30 million that's a down payment on the 2.5-year plans across those areas. That you'd look at those, but then you'd also be able to take it even a step further. And I think Dr. Smith and Dr. McKnight have even talked about it'd be great to be able to take it a step further to say, but keep in mind, our operations budget allows for however much we spend on school psychologists, however much we spend on school counselors, however much we spend in those components around social emotional supports, as an example. So for that strategic priority area 2, how does our operational budget, how do those big chunks of change, how do they further align and push that one strategic priority area?
Thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to better understand the stakeholder feedback around the CTE and its alignment to literacy and numeracy. What are they talking about?
What they were asking about there specifically is, are there ways, and I think they were really more just questioning, are there ways we can measure literacy and numeracy in the workplace, not just how our kids are performing in terms of math and reading, but how are those career and tech students, how is their and I see Ms. Harris nodding her head because she's taught career and tech education, how are those kids in career and tech ed, how is their literacy and numeracy different? And how are they able to show that difference? And are we thinking about measures that would specifically apply to them? A lot of the folks that were in that group, as you saw, they were, they're heavy into workforce. The woman, the lead there from Kaiser as well, she said, we've got kids and we hope that they're reading things in a way that matters to Kaiser, where they're reading things in a way and they're able to read a piece of text in the workplace and that their understanding is enhanced because of something they've gotten because of their career and tech experience. They got pretty in the weeds in terms of how we measure how those kids can perform based on what they've gotten in a classroom setting. So it's like really you think about a career and tech experience, a work-based learning experience, and how they take that one step further. I'll give you an example. It's kind of a personal example. My son did an internship. He was an Einstein student. He graduated last year. He did an internship in fall of his senior year. And one of the things they had him do was program some robots, and and it was for like their back when the federal government was still running and doing these kind of live shows as part of an exhibit project, right? So he had to program these robots. But in programming, he got it done really quickly. But he was looking at the directions and saying, these don't really mean a whole lot. But his supervisor actually sat down with him and said, why do you think these don't mean a whole lot? And he's like, well, because what it should have told you to do was X, Y, and Z. And it really just, he said, and those steps really don't make much sense in terms of what I really did. The whole thing, and probably his supervisor didn't realize he was trying to do it, but I talked to him about it later, and he basically said, I wanted to find out what was wrong with those directions. And for Darren to be able to articulate what was wrong with them, he did have a sense of workplace literacy. But so how do we measure that? How do we measure whether a kid can figure that out on their own, or whether without the directions they can't really get there? So he had it, and he knew he had it, but how would we know that we had it? So I don't know if you have more to add there.
Ms. Harris.
Yeah, just building on that, I see very directly that so many, I mean, really every one of our CTE programs builds into it the need for applied mathematics, applied literacy, because all of the, whether you're talking about automotive, you're talking about culinary, certainly you're talking about in the medical program, students are needing to apply measurements and numbers and, relational, measurements and numeracy, so that they don't overdose a patient, or don't mess up the recipe, or don't miscalibrate the engine. So there are all these applied measures that are built into that learning. But I really agree. I'm not sure we're doing a great job of, in ways that don't disrupt the flow of learning in the classroom, showing to people like this stakeholder group that you were meeting with that our students are not only building on their knowledge, but also applying the knowledge they brought with them and the knowledge they're learning in that classroom. But it's those are perfect real life ways, because the students are applying knowledge in their programs really every day. And I don't know that it's necessarily easy, but I think working with the instructors that teach those content areas could come up with some very straightforward ways that we could demonstrate and show to those who are looking at us from the outside how these programs are building on, without focusing necessarily on math and literacy skills.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're expanding my horizons. And I think that's the whole purpose of reaching out to business leaders, is to see what they need from our students once they graduate. So I appreciate that. Ms. Chapman, this is one stakeholder group, but we usually have a list of other groups that are like the African American Achievement Action Group and NAACP and so forth. Have they also seen this plan and commented? No, they haven't. I think that we could, I think we could certainly do that, frankly, using the 2.5-year planning teams. We could, we have those folks already in place. We have representatives across 1977. We have, NAACP, Black and Brown Coalition. We could use that as a vehicle for this. And I think maybe that's a next logical step. Yeah, and if we could shift momentarily to that piece, and also our best thinking about how to get community input once the plan is more finalized. I think we had talked about maybe putting it out for comment for a period before it goes to the full board. What is our best thinking to date around that?
I think the public comment period makes sense. I think that what I'd like to see us do, I think, is to, in terms, if the alignment in this and the three strategic priority areas make sense to the board, and this is the place to move forward, I think then we can go. First, I would suggest we go to the 2.5 planning team, share with them what it is that's been developed, gather some of their ideas. They might have some additional ideas about, particularly in the objectives and measures piece that you've talked about, and they could part of our reason for including them is it's not just including them as individuals, but the groups they represent. I'm not sure that we've put the onus enough on some of our community partners to say to them, you go share it and come back and collate that information and let us know what they say. I think we use their membership to be able to get some feedback on our own. And this is one place where I think it could make sense.
And this is our May 18th meeting, and our plan was to have a draft, and this is a draft. This committee meets again in early September. Is that correct?
Correct. We've talked about, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was just going to say, we've discussed if there's a need for an additional meeting at some point prior to that, if there is, and it could be that if we need to extend, I was thinking about your specific ask about wanting a measure for every objective, and maybe it's not necessary to meet, but maybe we could see where if we take that a step further, if this committee decides to really stick with those 3 areas, we could push that conversation a little bit further, and then share at least a further build out of the plan. That might be an appropriate next step, at least sharing it in written form before we bring it back and have a conversation again, so that we could be moved to a final in September.
So then in
our timeline was always,
go ahead.
Our timeline was always implementation in the fall. Ms. Seabrook and I looked back, and luckily she had notes from that back when Dr. Johnson was working on this piece and when he was still here. Our timeline was always to have a final strategic plan for 22-25 by the fall of this year, 21-22.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, we could get some feedback from the 2.5 stakeholder group and then put it out for public comment before the September committee meeting, so that we could review all the comments received to date by then, and then present it to the full board at the later full board meeting. Does that make sense? Is the summer not a good time? I mean, it's been such a hectic year that people probably appreciate the summer to take a look at it. I don't know.
I still think I still think that they could be able to make comments over the summer. I don't know that that's too big of an ask, and I think that and the 2.5-year planning teams, we haven't completely. We have the plan work has been done, but I don't know. Dr. Harris, do you think that that's realistic in terms of getting comment?
Is it possible, Carla, that we can get back to you? Because I don't want to say yes and then we have to pull something back. I feel like there are some things that we can do, but I would also like to follow up with cabinet, because ultimately the goal is that it's going to be the strategic plan. We were just doing 2.5 as a vehicle, but ultimately we want to make this the strategic plan and not have separate things. It needs to be one plan. So there's a lot of pieces that we're trying to combine, and I want to make sure that we do it right, but also take the feedback that you've given us from this meeting to say what can be done in the summer, and kind of have like a timeline so that it could be a natural flow for implementation this fall. But I think some of it is possible, but some things I just want to make sure it is, because I don't want to put us in a position where we're like, oh, we're sorry, we messed up. But we can definitely get back to you as soon as possible about that.
Are my colleagues okay with that community input process?
Yes, it sounded fine with me. This is Shebra, and I appreciate Dr. Harris, because I was going to ask the question of when the 2.5 group would be able to look at it, and that would determine when we would be able to put it out for public comment and how long, and just to make sure people do have enough time. As you said, during the summer, some people are paying attention and some people are not, but depending on the time frame that we could get it out and then say when it's going to come back would make a lot of sense. So, but no, I'm definitely supportive of the community having the opportunity to engage with the strategic plan.
Ms. Harris? Good.
I do have another question when we come back about sort of the way we're merging the financial and the strategic when we get there.
Go ahead. Go ahead and ask that.
Well, I really do appreciate the way that we're in this realignment and kind of consolidation. We are being really mindful of how do we marry those two things, our financial fiscal work, and how that is really supporting our strategic work. And when I look at, the two elements sort of that get to how efficiently we're operating as a system, and we're looking at efficient operations and in highly effective employees, and moving those two prior, pieces of our 7-point strategic plan into efficient operations, highly effective employees, organizational, operational technology, and professional learning. One thing that I would observe is I know we are in the process of upgrading our financial systems and also our data systems. And I think that one of the, not the only, but one of the very end goals of that is to reduce sort of administrative pressures on staff. So teachers can spend less time doing, administrative pieces, and they can focus on the teaching and learning piece. So as we are moving forward and we're looking at our strategic work, and we were just talking about engagement, are we doing a good job of engaging our staff that are being affected, kind of day in and day out, week in and week out by the rollout of our new data systems and our new financial systems, and how that is actually impacting their workday? And is it helping to achieve that goal? Or can they, even if it's not doing it now, are they seeing how it will eventually, of making their days more efficient? Because I know we do hear from teachers all the time, and I know myself, last fall, it was a challenge moving into a fully virtual teaching platform and also trying to learn the new Synergy system. And we still hear from teachers who are struggling with that and having frustrations with that. And I'm wondering what we're doing to embrace that input in a way that actually helps us address it substantively, so the teachers and the staff members know we hear, we understand, we're addressing it, but also that we're taking their experience on the ground into account as we work with our contractors on, fully rolling out and engaging and implementing those systems.
Any thoughts about that, or just noted?
Well, and I think that part of the, and I want to look back, particularly on the career tech side, we have a number of school-based representatives on those from all three of the associations, MCAT, McBoa, and SEIU and MCEA. So I think that we should, I think that to your point, Ms. Harris, we need to ask them that specific question, right? When they review, does this, as a teacher coming to this, as a PPW or paraeducator coming to this, does this make sense to you in terms of what you, or is it too far away? I think a lot of times when you talk to educators about the measurement piece, people will reflect an understanding of it, but they'll say, I don't see what this, as you said, I don't see what that has to do with my day-to-day classrooms. How does it matter in terms of how I structure what I'm going to do over the course of this particular course offering this month or this fall? How does that align with what we're saying overall as a system that we're measuring? So I think you're right. I think we can put it on them. I think we can ask those questions specifically of those members. And again, then, take it further in terms of talking to the community and our internal community as well.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of wisdom there in teachers that can tell you how using this new data system does impact their daily life. How much time out of their day does it take them to deal with administrative functions on that new system as opposed to what we were using before? And what did they see could help them become more efficient and reduce the frustrations with that tool? And it is supposed to be a tool to help them do their work. What aspects of that, what ideas do they have for maybe improving that data system And then the same thing with our administrative secretaries in the main offices that are charged now with, processing paper timesheets and things like that. The goal with the new financial system is to remove that burden and take away that administrative time so they can redirect their work in other ways. But as we're doing that transition, I think that's where the rubber hits the road, as we're really looking at efficient operations and highly effective employees. Making you efficient and highly effective, or is this just giving you another headache?
So I do want to caution us as we're thinking about the strategic plan, and to be sure to keep what our measures are and then what some inputs might be around different measures. And so a lot of what you shared, Ms. Harris, is important information that can provide input for us as a district to make improvements and enhancements in the work that we do. But when we think about the strategic plan, we want to have something concrete that we're able to measure. And I want to go back to what I stated in terms of that is consistent, so that we know that as we're reporting out, that we are telling the same story for the district and not a varied story. And so we will need to continue to think about what are our internal office work to gather that feedback from stakeholders on things that are being implemented to continually improve that work. But then when we think about the measures for the strategic plan, we want something concrete and explicit so that we know that we are definitely measuring what is intended related to the goal of the objective.
And in that way, though, time is money, and, getting an input from teachers and staff members as to the number of hours in a day or a week that they're using up to do purely administrative functions could be something that we would want to know, because that is, if it's an administrative function, it's probably not directly related to their core work of teaching and learning or whatever.
I'm making a note of that. Time is money. I wanted to go back to some specific feedback that I detected. I think the first priority makes perfect sense to me. It's clear. It's all about student achievement. We've got measures in place for that. 2 and 3 has a kind of a hodgepodge of things in it, and I'd like for us to clean those up a little bit more. I'm really struggling with the social emotional piece, and I'm not an expert on this, so I trust your work in helping us think through better. So we've talked a lot about trauma and children coming to school with trauma. Are there measures in this area that address this? I mean, it's been brought up already about it. It appears under professional development in strategic priority number 3. But what are we going to do about trauma in the schools as a part of our larger social emotional work? And do we see it clearly here? That's a question mark for further thinking. I'm also struggling with parent engagement. Parent engagement to what end? Parent engagement for student achievement? Parent engagement to create inclusive and welcoming school communities? And I've already shared how hard it is to measure that, right? And so parent engagement, in my opinion, could be under priority area 1 if we're focusing on engagement to the end of teaching and learning. Do we want parents to be engaged so that their students can perform better in schools, or do we want them to be engaged so that they feel welcomed and active participants in our school community? I don't know if they're exclusive of each other. In order to get to that measure, I feel we have to be more specific as to what end. And then with strategic priority, and then I think communication is a big piece of parent engagement, right? And so communication is in priority area number 3 as a measure. So maybe we can think about joining those 2 together. Let's see. I liked what Ms. Harris said about consistency across the system. And so I worry about the Parent Academy measure because that is an elective. People can choose to do those or not. And so that's not consistent, in my opinion, across the school system. Let's see. And then same with professional development. Professional development to what end? In my opinion, it's to improve teaching and learning. So, and it's kind of a big area, so maybe it does deserve its own strategic priority, but in my opinion, it's like professional development to improve teaching and learning. So why isn't it in number one? Just thinking out loud here. So that's what's the comments. Ms. Harris?
And, you know, building a little bit on that, but also looking back at when we were talking, you know, a little bit about merging 7 priorities, 2.5-year plan, you know, kind of pulling things together in a tighter framework. When we're looking at, and we mentioned earlier, I think in the stakeholder piece about the recovery funds and things that we're going to be realizing as a system, which are going to be very helpful and useful to us, but are also going to go away at the beginning of, you know, September 2023. So as we're looking at, you know, efficiency in our operations and pulling the financial and the strategic together, and I'm not sure how this comes into play as a measurement, but looking to ensure that the enhanced revenues we're realizing because of, you know, recovery and SR2 and things like that, that we're using in ways that create infrastructure and programming that the school system can sustain when that funding goes away. And so making sure that we aren't using it to create a program that's wholly reliant on that ancillary funding, but instead are being really clearly thinking through when we're looking at expenditure of those funds, and you know, using it to move our strategic priorities forward, but not in ways that we end up having to sacrifice things when it goes away.
Good point. Thank you. And it came, I have to recognize that professional learning is not just for teachers and classroom staff, right? There's professional learning for the entire system. And so something else to think about. All right, so we've given you input on the priority areas. We've talked about a timeline and a community engagement process. What else do you need from us before we adjourn, or have we thought of something else that we haven't thought about?
Just looking back at notes. I think one thing that probably could be helpful is to, in this, I'm thinking about this whole thing about alignment. We have one plan, the work, the connections to the budget and how all that lines up. It might even be worth, after next week, when you hear from the 2.5 year, or you as a board, maybe to reflect once you hear more about the 2.5 year planning areas, because I think in those conversations, you're going to hear a much deeper dive around what it is those teams are doing and what that work is and what it looks like, then again, that's on the 25th. And then on the 27th, you will hear the cost for those different pieces and at least as a part of that down payment for $30 million. My guess is that we're gonna touch on some things that may impact these three proposed priority areas, 3 strategic priority areas, and what the work is there. So it might be worth it, I think, on the other side of those conversations to maybe just revisit a little bit what we've said here today, and is it inclusive of what you heard about 2.5-year plan, the work, and the budget implications overall? Just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Edison, anything to close us out?
No, I think we have a good start, and your feedback is helpful in terms of what we've proposed. And so I'm just looking at my notes in terms of our next steps and actions around refining and providing more, what I'm going to say is dynamic priority area names that give a little bit more than kind of just a brain dump around what these could be organized as. And then again, just making sure that as we continue to talk about the strategic plan, and kind of what you elevated earlier, one plan with goals, objectives, and strategies to align to the plan and make sure that plan is carried out. And so we'll work on that. I was reflecting on your comment around the overlap of where things such as professional learning are. And so as we think about it, perhaps reorganizing or structuring kind of what we have for teaching and learning so that we see the school-based side and then the business side of things, because to your point, there are things that overlap across all of them. So it is a struggle. So how do we make it clear that these are the measures within each of the priority areas that are a continuous thread throughout?
Great.
When we talked earlier, Ms. Sylvester, you suggested about, using and Dr. Addison just alluded to getting together with our communications team members, Chris and Boyende. And maybe the idea then to think about in terms of getting input, if we had their help, and they're involved in the 2.5-year planning as well, to create something that's maybe a little jazzier than sharing the strategic, not that strategic planning isn't the most jazzy thing in the world, but if they maybe took the strategic plan and these 3 broad areas, and the work and even the budgeting piece, and created a video. Maybe that might be an easier way to share it and get some community input through that. It could be shared in a more concise way. It might be a good way to do that, particularly if we're concerned about getting good community input in the summer.
Great. Another tool in the toolbox, for people that prefer that method. So thank you. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer than we have to. So I appreciate your work and working with the committee to kind of this iterative process of fine-tuning our new plan and the work that remains in the coming months. So thank you very much. And if I can get a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're adjourned. Have a great day.
Thank you.